right, good afternoon, crew. Looks like we have a couple of people who are still joining, so I'm going to stall a little bit in our intro and then we'll get started. So our afternoon webinar today is all about Pear Deck, which is a webinar that our ed tech department has offered and will continue to offer this week and next week, and then also in the summertime. But I do know that my webinars are at a different time, so hopefully you get just as much out of this one as you would from our district webinars. We go over the same things, I promise. So thanks for joining me. The cool thing about Pear Deck right now is that because of the COVID crisis, that part's not cool, we do get free access to all their premium features for 90 days. So I started my trial today, which means that I now have 90 days from today to use all of those really awesome premium features. So as soon as you upgrade to premium for free, you'll have 90 days to use those features. And I did get clarification today from somebody at Pear Deck that all of the Pear Deck presentations, I guess, that you create with those premium features, they will still have those premium features after your trial is over with. So I'll talk about some of those premium features as we get started today, but that's a cool thing to keep in mind. So over the course of the summer, if you want to build your Pear Decks out, you'll still have access to those after your 90-day trial is over. So super awesome. All right, so our agenda today, we're going to talk about obviously what Pear Deck is, how do I access it, and when we talk about that access, we're going to look at building your Pear Decks, and we do that in Google Slides with an add-on. It is possible to build in PowerPoint as well. I am very familiar with Google Slides and not as familiar with PowerPoint, so we're going to focus on Google Slides today. But if you are a PowerPoint fan and would like resources on that, I can find you some resources and send those out. And then we're going to look at what you can find on that Pear Deck website as well. That's where you'll go to find reports and things like that. So we're going to look at both sides of that. In part 2 today, we're going to look at building a Pear Deck lesson. So starting with a slide deck and adding questions. And then in part 3, we'll talk about presenting a lesson. And then our last part today is about how to view that student data and some of the cool things, again, that you get in that premium free trial. So with all that said, there is a lot going on in this webinar. I am hopeful that we'll get through it in an hour, but we'll see. So we're going to go ahead and get started with number 1. So what is Pear Deck? Pear Deck is an add-on that works with Google Slides and with PowerPoint, like I said before. It allows you to embed formative assessment checks throughout your lesson. So it's a really awesome way to do that. The free version allows you to do a synchronous, that's the word I was looking for, a synchronous lesson where your students are on there with you and you are navigating through the slide deck and then they're answering questions throughout. Because we have access to that paid version right now for free, you also have access to the student paced feature, which is typically a premium feature. And that's really awesome because that allows your students to work asynchronously, so outside of the in-class time, to complete those formative assessment things. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, it's a formative assessment tool that works really, really nicely with Google Slides. So with that said, we're gonna actually look at a Pear Deck lesson. So I'm gonna kind of pull out of present mode. I'm currently in Google Slides right now, and I actually added on to our presentation today some slides from Pear Deck. They have a whole slide deck just for professional development. So I borrowed and tweaked that, and that's what we're going to work with today. So the first thing you need to know, to build out your Pear Deck, you want to start with slides. Like I said before, you can do it in PowerPoint. That is possible. We're going to focus on slides today. So you would build out whatever your lesson might be typically in slides, just by adding new slides and adding content to them. We're going to get to the adding questions piece in just a second. Once you have your slides ready to go, you're going to go up into your menus at the top, and you'll notice that towards the right-hand side of your menus, you have one that says add-ons. And so add-ons are things that work directly with the app you're in, so in this case, Google Slides, to make it function better. So extensions work with our browser, add-ons work with the tool itself. So I can get to my add-ons by clicking on that menu. And then I already have it installed, but if it's your first time, we're going to need to install it. So you're going to go down to the bottom where it says Get Add-Ons. And when you click on that, it's going to bring up our little add-on library. And all you need to do is search for it. It might even pop up first thing because it's really popular. You'll notice that Pear Deck is one of the first ones here, as is Nearpod. They're very, very similar in what they can do. Some of the features that are free in Pear Deck are paid in Nearpod and vice versa. So depending on what you're looking for, Nearpod might work just as well, but they're very, very similar. So we're focusing on Pear Deck. I will tell you that I'm going to pause my recording real fast. And we're back. All right, so like I said, they're very similar. We're going to focus on Pear Deck. So to install it, all you're going to need to do is click on it. So select it. If it didn't pop up, by the way, you could have searched for it. Pear Deck, super simple. And then you'll have a button here that says install. Mine says uninstall, but yours should say install. And once you've done that, when you go back to that add-ons menu, you'll notice that Pear Deck for Google Slides add-on is one of your choices. So you're going to need to install it first by going to Get Add-Ons, and then once it's installed, it'll pop up here. And by the way, these are some other ones that I have installed in the past. There's lots of really cool ones out there. I will tell you the Pear Deck one is the one that I use most often though. All right, so now to add in all of that formative assessment awesomeness, all we need to do is go to add-ons, go to Pear Deck for Google Slides add-on. You'll notice it opens up on the right-hand side, and then we'll click on that Open Pear Deck add-on. And it will pull up this little sidebar in just a second, once it finishes working. Okay, so you'll get this little sidebar over here. All right, so the first thing we have here is Start Lesson. So once you've built it out, we're going to come back to that button, but we're going to look at some of our build options underneath first. So the next option we have is for our template library. So if you're not sure where to start, this is an awesome place to go. If I click on our template library here, it's going to show me some different categories of popular templates. So they have them kind of separated out by the timing in the lesson. Am I looking for a bell ringer? Am I looking for an assessment during? Or am I looking for an end of the lesson kind of thing? But underneath that, they also have them separated out by the type of thinking involved. And then keep on going down, and now we have it by subject area. So let's say I am a littles teacher. Let's see what's in that littles category. So I'm going to click on littles here. And so what they have are built out slides that already have the questions embedded. So you can kind of go through and see, all right, what would make the most sense for what I am teaching? So if I am teaching, graphing, that's fun. If I'm teaching graphing, I can use this slide about graphing. I'm going to click on it. It's going to think a little bit, maybe a lot of it. And after it finishes thinking, notice that it popped that slide right into my Google Slides presentation. You'll notice that at the bottom of our slide, it has kind of the type of question that's embedded here. So this is a draw anywhere kind of question. And I know that because it says that underneath. When I click on that, that's actually a link. So when I go to present later and start my lesson, you'll see what that looks like from that perspective. But students are asked to actually draw this little graph here. And so like I said, we'll see that later, but I know that there's already a question linked because it has this little footer on the slide that's actually linked. And I don't want to change that link. If I do anything to that link, that question will no longer work when I present my lesson. So I can dig through the different templates and find something I want. I can also find something that's close to what I want, and now I can come in and I can change things. So this is a slide, so I can edit anything on that slide using my Google Slides editing toolbar. So if I wanted to change this to say, graph the things you found in your house, and then I can come in and change these little pictures to match things that they might find in their house. So I have full editing rights on that slide. It's just a template for me to start with. Okay, and as I scroll down, I see all sorts of different options here. There are so many templates already created for you. And again, to get there, I'm going to go all the way back. When I opened up my Pear Deck add-on, this is where I started. That was in my template library. Okay. And within our template library, as a reminder, I can look at different content areas. I can look at different parts of the lesson. So there's lots of different ways to find these little template options. So that's one way to find things to add to your slides. I can also go with a slide that I've already created and then add my own question. So I'm going to move down to some of these. So for example, this is a question I'm looking for just some prior knowledge. So this would be a great question for my students to either answer multiple choice or to answer with text. And so you'll notice underneath my template library, I have some options for inserting a question. Now there is already a question on this slide. I see that it is a choice option. Notice that the icon in that little choice circle matches what I see next to the pair. So that tells me what kind of question is already on this slide. And so when I go and click on choice, because I already have that on this slide, rather than creating a new question, it's going to pull up the question that's already there. So I can come in now and I can edit those choices as I need, or I can leave it as is. So I'm going to leave that as is. Okay, it's adding, it's thinking. Give it just a second. Okay, and so now I know that that question is there and ready to go. I'm going to find one. So on our next slide, this is a draw anywhere. So I'm going to recreate this. So to get rid of this question, because it's already added to the slide, I'm just going to select that footer and delete it, which you shouldn't do unless you want to get rid of your question. And that was a draw anywhere question. So I'm going to click on the draw. So I have the slide selected. This is the slide that I want to add this question to. And then I'm going to click on draw. And again, it will bring me this pop-up. Okay, I am going to update this slide so that I have a drawing response. And there's nothing else to add the drawing response because that's exactly what it is. They have a chance to annotate on the slide. So I don't have to do things like add answer options or things like that. Just as a quick note, your draw and your draggable, which we'll look at the draggable in a second, both of those options are premium. So those are two options that you only get for 90 days unless you choose to pay for the premium after your trial is up. But if you create your Pear Deck slides and put all these questions in within that 90 days, once your trial is up, your students will still be able to draw and do the draggable questions on your pre-created ones. So those will still be accessible even after your 90 days. So that's why I said if you're looking to get busy this summer, that's a great thing to do. Create those Pear Decks so that you get full access of those premium features. And then your students can even use them when your premium access has expired. So super awesome feature. All right, so that was our draw one. Again, we're going to look at this in just a second to see what it looks like from the student view. But adding that question was super simple. On our next one, we have that drag and drop. So I'm going to get rid of the question and I'm going to insert a draggable. And again, it's going to bring me that little pop-up. Any second now. There we go. Okay, so first off, this is just telling me what it's going to kind of look like. So on their device, they're dragging the icons. On our projector, we'll be able to see where they've dragged them. So that's exactly what this screen is telling me. But notice this time I have the next button. And now I get to decide what is it that I want them to drag. So in this case, my directions say to drag the flag. So right now my item is a dot. I want to change that. And so when I click on that little drop-down menu, I have some different options. So in this case, I'd want to choose the flag, but notice that you also have all of these other options too. And then if you don't like any of those, oh, that's a different dot. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that, and I can go ahead and change the color of that as well. So if I don't want it to be red, I can change it to that. And if you're asking your students to drag to multiple things, so if the directions said to drag the purple flag to Algeria and the blue flag to, I don't know, Kenya, then you could add another draggable thing, and then they can drag a second flag to your second location. So you can add additional draggables. In this case, it just makes sense to have one. And I can also change the size of that icon depending on what I'm having them drag it to. So I don't want it to be super giant because then I can't tell whether they're dragging it to Algeria or to a different country. And then when I'm ready, I'm just going to click on Update Slide, and it will add that question type to our slide. All right. I just want to keep going so we can see the other question types. So this is a write your response. So let's go ahead and look at what it looks like to add that. So I'm going to add a text response this time. Again, it's just going to tell me what it's going to look like on theirs. I don't have to add any other information. All it's going to do is give them this blank text box to type in. So at this point, I just click on Update Slide, and it's adding that question type to my slide. All right. Our next slide is a number one. So same thing. I'll use that number question. Okay, and again, it's going to give them a blank text box, so I don't need to add any extra information. And there we go. All right, and then our last option in our Ask a Question is that website one. We have an example of that here. So when I add a website, let me add a blank slide because I don't want to get rid of theirs. When I add a website, this allows my students to navigate within that website without leaving my Pear Deck presentation. So when I click on next, I'm asked to put in the address. So if I want them to explore our EdTech blog, oh, it's not going to work. Of course not. Let me try opening it and see if I can get it to. Whoops. Still not going to work. Oh, I think it's because I'm making you log in. Okay, well, maybe we're just going to explore google.com or not. We're going to put in a website. And it's not going to give us a preview, but what it'll do is it will send them to that website without making them leave. So you'll see an example of that when we get to this slide as I present our lesson. So I'm going to get rid of my terrible example and we'll go with theirs. All right, the other really cool thing that you have access to right now, because it is a premium option, and this is brand new, you now have the option to add audio to their slides. So my people who need read aloud, this is huge. Now, with that said, you also have that option in Google Slides themselves. So outside of the add-on, you also could insert audio, but here you have to have pre-recorded it and saved it somewhere so that you can easily add it. So that's not super simple. When you click on Add Audio to Slide within our Pear Deck, I'm going to do that on this one, it's going to give you the record option. So I can come in here now and I can say, on this slide, please explore a website. I'm trying to see my directions. Of course I can't. I can't resize it either. So you're going to not want to know what you need to say ahead of time. So explore a website, blah, blah, blah. And then at this point, I could either continue, I could delete it, or I could save it. So I'll save it so we can see what that's like later. I can come in and I can listen to it now before I post it, or when I'm ready, I'll just add that audio to that slide. But this gives me an opportunity to talk to my kids. So especially people who teach littles, that's going to be really important so that they know what to do on those slides, especially if you're using it in student-paced mode. All right, again, that's a premium feature. Now, I've been told that if you add it before your premium trial runs out, then it will still be there afterwards. So fingers crossed that the Pear Deck people didn't lie to me. All right, so those are our things that we can add to our slides. Okay, if you're looking for more information when we're done with this webinar, or maybe you pause and don't look at this again until August and you forget, within our add-on here, they do have a little video that tells you a little bit more about Pear Deck. All right. And now at this point, we're going to say we're ready to get started. So before I begin my lesson, there are 3 lines next to it. Anytime I see 3 dots or I see 3 lines, I'm always tempted to click on it. I want to see what's hidden in there. So I have a video, that same video that's at the bottom, that's also linked here. I could publish and share this lesson with other teachers. And then this one's important right here. I can have my students join using their email. I believe that's okay, even with our data privacy issues. But if you're worried about that, you could always turn it off. It will prompt them to put in a nickname. And then you'll just tell them what kind of nickname to put in. So whatever identifying information you're using in your class. I'm actually going to turn that off so it doesn't prompt you to log in. All right. And then our last option is to review our sessions. We'll look at that in just a minute. That's going to take us to the Pear Deck website. So we're all set to present. I'm going to go ahead and start my lesson now. And that's really simple. I just click on the Start Lesson button. Okay. And immediately I'm prompted to choose. Do I want to start it in instructor-paced activity, or do I want to start it as a student-paced activity? Now you are able to really easily change it as soon as you start the lesson. So you're not stuck in one mode. So let's say you're doing a class lesson when you maybe we're back in school, or if you're doing it through something like Google Meet, which is possible. You might start in instructor-paced, but then you run out of time and you could change it to student-paced and have them finish it for homework. So that's an option. I'm going to start in instructor-paced as well, and then we'll push it over to student-paced. Just keep in mind that that student-paced is a premium feature, so that will go away after your 90 days unless you choose to pay. So I'm going to start in instructor, and this is what it's going to pull up once it loads. My internet's super slow today. All right, so when you're in the classroom, it's super easy to just put this on the board. Your students will go to joinpd.com and here's the code. Or you do have the option to provide them the direct link to this. So to do that, down at the bottom of our little pop-up here, we have give students a link. So I'll click there. Right now that link is copied to my clipboard. So I could share this in a Google Meet in my chat. I could share it on Google Classroom, or in this case, I'm gonna share it in Zoom. So if you would like to join us, there is the link, and that will help you get logged in. And again, it's gonna prompt you just for a nickname, so you can put in whatever you want. If I were actually teaching in the classroom, I would tell my students to please put in your first name, last initial, or something like that. So notice that I'm sitting here and I'm looking, I see how many students are connected. So that's just really helpful. If I know I have, 17 kids in my class this time, and I only have 15 kids connected, I know I need to wait. With that said, they can join afterwards. So it's not like they're frozen out, even though we've started without them. All right. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start our class. And on your screen, you should see what I see on mine. By the way, if you are wondering, you can see both screens at the same time. If you are on a Windows computer, you're going to select either your Meet tab or your Pear Deck tab, either one. And you're going to hold down the Windows button and then either your right or left arrow key. And when you do that, it will make one of those fill half the screen, and then you'll choose the other window to fill the other half. So in this case, it would be Zoom. All right. So I'm in teacher pace mode. You guys are stuck on this slide until I tell it to move. So that's really valuable if you're giving directions, or like I said, you really want to move at that same pace and have those discussions throughout. And we'll stay in teacher mode just for a little bit here. So on my side, I can click through my slides on the bottom left-hand corner. And when I change my slide, your slide changes as well. All right. When I get to a slide that's prompting you to do something, on your slide, you have the drawing tools for this one as well. And you know what? I'm going to open, just in case you are not in here with us, I'll show you the student view too. So we're going to have all sorts of views going on here because I'm going to show you the teacher dashboard and the student view and the presenter view, all of those. All right. So I'm in student view right now, just so you know. And so if you're not in here with us, this is what you're seeing. You're seeing the ability to draw on our slide here. So in this case, it's a graphic one. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't have a whole lot of acorns in my house. I do have quite a few leaves right now, though. My dog likes to bring them in, so I could draw on our slide as I go. And again, I have those different colors. Okay, so that's what our students see. I'm going to drag that student view out of the way. On the board, this is what they're seeing right now. I have the option as the teacher to show their responses, okay? And right now we're looking at them in a list. So I'm seeing, like, this is one student, and then I scroll down, here's student 2, student 3, etc. I can change that layout on the board. So this is what I'm presenting to the class. I can change that layout from list to grid up in the top left corner. So I have those 3 different icons. I'm going to click on grid, and we'll see that in this view. And then I also have the option to see them overlaid, which means one on top of the other. So in this case, I don't know how helpful it is to see it like this, but I do like the grid because I can see them nice and easy on the board. All right. So that's one of the things that I can do in presenter mode. In presenter mode, I also have the ability to lock your screen. So you can no longer draw. I'm forcing you now to participate in our conversation or to look up at the board because you can't do anything any longer on your screen. And so at the bottom here, I have that ability again to unlock your screen, and now you're able to edit again. I can also get rid of those responses, and when I do that, it just brings up that question again. So really awesome features there. And then while we're in here, at the bottom, we're going to skip new prompt for now. We'll come back to that, I promise. Those 3 dots, love me some 3 dots. When we click on that, notice that I also have the option to open up what's called the dashboard. And the dashboard is something that you'll want to have open on a different device, or at least on a different screen. So you don't want to show your students this, but this is a great thing if you have like an iPad or something like that. It'd be great to have this open on your iPad while you're presenting in front of the class so that you can see that student data without other students seeing it as well. So I'm going to open it in a new window. Again, these are premium features, so keep that in mind. And on my teacher dashboard, I'm going to make it big so you can see it. Maybe. Goodness, it's so slow. Okay. So on my teacher dashboard, the cool thing about this is that I have a lot of those same options. I'm looking at that different student view, but notice in my view here, I'm seeing it with your nicknames. So your nicknames are not super identifiable, but if I had my students log in, it would be with their name, and that's why we don't want them to be displayed on the board necessarily. Also within my presenter view, so I'm going to close my notes real fast. I get access to the slide deck on the left-hand side, so I can kind of preview through and see what's coming up. So that's really helpful to see. Also, any notes that were in that notes section of the slide, I can access those. So if I want to put in some like reminders for what I need to talk about as I'm presenting, that's a great place to do that. And again, they did that in, so I'm going to, it's not going to let me add that as a tab. Okay. You can do that in the actual notes section of your Google slide. So that's at the bottom of your slide when you're creating. You can add in those talking points there, and that's what I'm seeing in my presenter dashboard. That's where those notes come from. And then again, I have those same options on my presenter slide. So I could either be doing this up at the board, or I could be doing it on mine. I could tell it to show those responses. So now my students are all looking at them. I could lock the screen. I have all of those options from my presenter dashboard as well. All right. And I'm going to minimize my presenter side, and let's look at our next question. Okay, so I'm back at this is what I'm seeing on the board. This is the projector view. And I'm going to move to the next question here. All right. So these are just slides with no questions. That's why you're not being prompted to do anything, but here we go. Here is a question that's prompting you to answer in multiple choice form. So you as a student can choose an answer. All right. And then on my the board here, I can choose to show those responses, and I can look at them. This is the overlay with a multiple choice question. So it's just kind of a general view, or I can look at it in grid view. And again, I'm not seeing any identifying information, so that's helpful for me to look at and talk about with the class. But if I want to see each of these responses with student names, I'd have to go to that teacher dashboard. And in that teacher dashboard, now I'm seeing who answered what. All right. I'm going to move it along here. I'm going to try to show you each of the question types here, and then we'll probably move it along to student view after that. So in this one, we are asked again to draw on our slide. So I do want to show you from my student view. I could sit here and I could try to write it out with my mouse, but the students do have the option to use that text feature. So I can use that text feature. I'll click where I want it, and I don't know my parts of a cell, so this is not very helpful. Is this ribosomes? I don't know. I'm going to make it up. All right. And so I could put that text there. Again, I have those editing features with that text, but that's something that I'm able to do on the student side. And then again, on my teacher side, we can look at those responses. Awesome. You guys seem to know more about cell parts than I do. It's been a very long time since I had to do cell parts, but that's fun. Yes, whoever this is, that seems more correct than ribosomes. So, all right. Okay, and at this point in time, maybe on this one, I realized, ooh, I need to do another check here to see how my students are doing with parts of a cell. At this point, I can add in a question on the fly. So that's a really cool feature of Pear Deck. If I realize that I need to do an additional check for understanding, but it's not already in my slides, that's an option we have both from the projector view and from my, my teacher dashboard. So that's that new prompt. And when I click on that, I can pull up, here are a set of those templates. And I can decide which one of these do I want to use to check. So I'm going to do the dot right now. So I'm going to click on that one. And at this point, it's going to automatically show you this question. And so you get to come in and say, ooh, there's where I'm at. Okay, and I can do that right on the fly as I'm realizing, oh my goodness, we need some work here. Okay, awesome. So hopefully you're saying, keep going, I understand about Pear Deck. I said, stop, I need some help based on my knowledge of cells. But yes, awesome. And by the way, I'm in overlay mode right now. That's what I'm seeing. I can see it in that grid layout again, or in that list layout if I wanted to. I like the overlay layout for a lot of our question types. Some of them make more sense to use the other layouts though. All right. Okay, here's your drag and drop again, and this time we're dragging the flag to Algeria. Don't worry, I'm not going to test your knowledge of African geography, but super simple to use, that drag and drop feature, and that has a lot of uses in our classrooms today. Anything where you're labeling, for sure. Right. In math, number lines, I can see a whole lot of use with that. We used to have to do fractions on a number line. This would be a great way to use that drag and drop. All right. Okay. At this point in time, it's asking just for a short answer question. I don't need you to necessarily answer it for real, but just put something in there so I can show you what we see with our responses. Awesome. And so I want you to notice that I am seeing it update live. So in front of the class, I could be showing this on my board, or I could be watching this on my teacher dashboard. So that way I can come in and see, ooh, I need to go and check on, you know, this student over here, this student's not answering. So maybe this is the time to use that proximity in the classroom and go and stand right behind him. But it does allow me that ability to see them answer it live. So that teacher dashboard is really helpful. And again, I could just have this up. I don't necessarily need to be showing it on the board. My board could look like that. Oops, I just opened my email. But this is what I'm seeing on my screen. All right. Awesome. Okay. So I think we got, oh, one more. We have to do the number one. Oh, and we have to see the website. So we're not ready yet. All right. So on this one, it's asking you to enter a number. It just looks like a short answer again. I'm just going to put a number in. But the way that it pops up on the teacher side is a little bit different. So rather than just seeing a list of the responses in my overlay view, I'm seeing it kind of on this number line. So I get to see a little bit of a spectrum. It reminds me also of like a box and whisker plot from back in the day, which is interesting. So I'm seeing kind of the range of answers here. And I could also see that in the grid view. And then on my teacher side, if it'll update here. Come on, teacher side. I froze it. I ruined it. There we go. Okay. On our teacher side, again, I'm seeing it by student or in my overlay. I just see that view that we saw on the board. Okay. I also have the ability, by the way, to, on my teacher side, I can feature a response. So I can feature, that's our response I want to feature. And on my teacher, or on my, projector view now, that's the response we're looking at. Okay, I featured it, that's the response we're seeing. And all I did was I starred it. And so when I want that to go away, I'll just unstar it. So that allows me to come in and we can have a discussion about a particular answer. It doesn't have to be identifiable for the student. So I don't have to say this is Koala's answer, but I can put that up on the board and maybe we can have a discussion about, is this a reasonable answer? Why or why not? But it allows me that discussion point right there. And again, it makes that kind of be the focus of the board. That's what everybody's seeing on my projector. I'm going to undo that. And I'm sorry, Koala, that we're only feeling flat-faced. All right. I do want to get to the website. So this is just justification one. We've already looked at that, so I'm not going to make you do that again. But this is the one I want to show you. So if it'll load, mine's not loading, so we'll see if yours will. We're supposed to be seeing a website. I'm not sure if you're seeing the website or if there's an issue with that link. But notice that on the student side here, I see the slide on the left-hand side, and then over on my right-hand side, it should be loading a website. Again, it doesn't seem to be working right now, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But the other thing about this slide that I want to point out, this is the one where I recorded that audio. And so you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little headphone button. And this allows me to play the audio. On this slide, please. Okay, so your students do have to click on it. It's not going to automatically play for them, but that symbol will show up in the bottom right-hand corner for them. So if you're doing it on every slide, not every kid is probably going to have to use that, but it's good to have that as an accommodation for your students that do need that read aloud. Yeah, I don't know why it's not loading, but that's what it should be doing. So it must be an issue with the link. I'm going to open the link and see what happens. So it's working here. I don't know why it's not loading. At the bottom on your student view where it says viewing, that is a hyperlink. So if need be, you could click on it. It's not supposed to make you leave, but for whatever reason, it's not allowing it to load right now in the window. But this is just a whole entire page about remote learning with Pear Deck. So that's a great resource. And we'll look at our Pear Deck website in a little bit here. All right, so I'm going to move that out of the way. Awesome. Okay, and then there are all sorts of SEL, so social emotional learning types of checks in here. So, oh good, okay, so the link worked for some and not for me. That's okay. But there's a lot of social emotional checks that are already built into those templates. So if you just want to do a quick check-in, look at those templates in your Pear Deck add-on. So again, that was in our template library here. But this is one of those. So just a good way to kind of check where your students are at. And then as a class, we can see where we are. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to show you within my little toolbar at the bottom on my projector screen, I have the ability to go to those three dots. In here, I can turn on student paste mode. I can also do it from my teacher dashboard. Same deal, three dots. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. And so now at this point in time, I could post this link on Google Classroom so you can come back to it later. Okay, but this is a great way to do either homework or in the classroom. I would probably use this in centers where it's not something that I need to be in front of the class presenting, but I'm still collecting that valuable data. So my students would then be able to navigate through. So I'm in student mode here. Here's my student window. they're able to navigate through at their own pace. They don't have to wait for me to click through the slides. They can move through and answer questions as they go. So student pace mode is a great way to do it asynchronously, so that you're not all sitting together and doing it. And at this point in time, right now, I'm in student pace mode, but I could stop it on my teacher dashboard and on my projector. I have that option to stop it, and it will bring it back to my teacher pace mode. It'll put your students back on whatever slide I say. So I get to control again. So I can send them off to do some work, and then we can come back and talk. So this might be a great way to kind of rein them in. You realize as they're working, oh my goodness, they're really stuck on slide 24. They don't know what to do. I could turn off student pace mode, talk about slide 24 together, and then I have the ability now to go back in and turn it back on. All right. When you get through all of your slides and you're ready to end your lesson, from your teacher dashboard or from your projector side, you have that end button. And so all I'm going to do is click on end. And yes, I am, yes, I'm sure. I had to read that. And the next thing it's going to ask you to do is name it. So you're going to be able to go back in and view this data. So you want to make sure you name it something that would identify it to this particular session. So if you are a departmentalized teacher and you teach multiple classes, you're going to want to name it like the example. And you may even want to name it with the date comes with it, but it might just be helpful to put some more information about exactly what this is. So this is my webinar sample. And then I'll put the date here, even though it's going to come up later. Now underneath that, it automatically selected it, but I have the option to publish what are called student takeaways. And we'll look at what that looks like in just a minute, but what it does is it creates a Google Doc for each student in your session that you could then share back with them, and it will show them each of the slides and the responses on those slides. And so you can then have them go in and do some reflection. You can add comments as a teacher, so it's a great way to give some feedback to your students. But again, this is a premium thing, so it's not going to be something you're able to do once your trial ends. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save and end my session. It's thinking. Okay, at this point, I can open this link or I can share it to Google Classroom, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to show you where to find this after the fact, because chances are you end your lesson, you're getting ready to start the next class. You don't have time to deal with your takeaways yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and close out and even close out of my teacher dashboard. And I'm going to go and navigate now to peardeck.com. So we've looked at the add-on, we've built it in the add-on. Now we're going to look at some of the resources you have on peardeck.com, including where you can go to find your session info. So when you go to peardeck.com, the first thing you want to do is log in. And so that's on the right-hand side. Now keep in mind, if you are prompted, you want to select sign in with Google because you created it in your Google account. That's where all your data is. And if it's your first time in, it's probably going to prompt you to start your free trial. So keep in mind you have 90 days from when you start it. And because I started my free trial today, I now am wearing a crown in my picture. It's pretty exciting. All right, so this is the landing page. And we don't need to really talk about a whole lot in here. There's another link to create a lesson. It's going to talk to you about creating in Google Slides. There is a link to some of those templates for just those quick check-ins. So that's what I added to our slide when I asked, how are you feeling about, in that case, cells. That was one of those pop-up activities. And then we're probably not going to have time to talk about Pear Deck vocabulary. That's something that we'll probably save for a training when you're back in school. I love the flashcard factory in Pear Deck. So when we get started back up in face-to-face learning, that's a really cool tool that we'll discuss then. But right now, up along the top, in my left-hand corner, we're going to click over on sessions. And when I do that, here are all of the Pear Decks that I have done recently. And so these are the ones that have not yet been archived. Okay, and you'll notice that the one that we did today, I started it at 3:22, is right up at the top. All right, and I can see what the status was. So right now it's in student paced mode. It hasn't been closed technically. All right, and then I get to see what is the type, what's the name of it, etc. And then what I want to look at though is all the way over on the right-hand side. So on the right-hand side, I have 3 different icons. I can look at it from the classroom view. Any second now. And it's going to bring back up the ability to join it. I'm going to go back. Any second now. It's just so slow. I can look at the teacher dashboard view. Okay, got it. And it shows me that view again. Or the last thing I have there is the 3 dots, and this is my favorite place. So we can go to those 3 dots, and this is where we can come in to archive it. We could rename it. In this case, I want to turn off that student paste, and I also probably want to end that session. So you can no longer do anything. All right, now that that session is closed, so notice the status changed. In my 3 dots, I now have some other options. So down at the bottom, I have the ability to export that data to a spreadsheet. So I selected that. We're going to wait a second while it's thinking. And this allows you to view your student data all in one place. So it puts it in a Google Sheet for you. You get your students' names, and then you get their answers on each of those slides. So you can come in and you can see exactly who did what in one nice view. Okay, so that's really helpful to see. We also have the ability here to look at the takeaways. And like I said, this is a premium feature. It's really cool right now, but it's gonna go away. So when I click on takeaways, it's gonna load for a long time. Actually, I don't know how this is gonna work because you guys weren't signed in. Let's find out. This might take a little bit because it's generating Google Docs. And so, like I said, that's a lot of data to deal with. While we're waiting on that to load, I did have a question. It was asked privately, but I'm going to answer it to everyone. So the question was, is the vocabulary feature a premium thing? So that flashcard factory, and the answer is no. That is a free feature. It's a great way to have students work on different vocabulary terms. So what they are prompted to do is they're partnered up, and then each pair is given a term, and one person is in charge of writing either a definition or a sentence using that term, kind of depending on how you give directions. And the other partner is asked to draw a picture. And then those 2 things are put together to create a flashcard. And then they're given another term and they repeat those steps. But in the end, you as the teacher can go through and decide which flashcards will make it into your class flashcard deck. And then that deck can be exported to Quizlet. Which I used to do all the time. And then we used to play something called Quizlet Live with the terms that they created. So that's a long story short, but that's something that hopefully we can talk more about in the fall, fingers crossed, if we're back in school. All right, so I stalled enough. Now my takeaways have finished loading. So let's look at them in Drive first. So I clicked on that top link, and it's going to pull me into my own Google Drive. And by the way, this created a folder for Pear Deck, and then within my Pear Deck folder, it created another folder for takeaways, and then within the takeaways folder, it created another folder for this particular Google Slides presentation, and then for this particular session. So there's a lot of subfolders in there, but this is what I get. So I get these separate documents, and then each document at the end is labeled with your nickname. So in this case, they're not identifiable, so I don't know who's who. But if your students have logged in, you'll see their name tagged at the end. And then I can go into any one of these documents And I get a kind of a summary of how the student did on each of the slides. So it's going to take a minute to load here because there's a lot going on. All right, let's get down to one that actually has responses. So notice they get the preview of the slide in here. All right, so this one, for example. So I see the slide, and of course there's no response. This is a bad example to choose. It's either not loaded yet or this person didn't leave a response. Let's see, do we have any responses? Let me open a different person's. Looking for, didn't we talk about crane, tree frog? These names are fun. Squid. All right, maybe it was fox. Let's try this one. It's real slow. All right. It just may not be loading. So I'm not sure if that's just because there's too much going on at once. But the cool thing about this is that you can come in once it's all loaded as a teacher and you can give some feedback. So you might ask them to come back in and reflect upon their response here. You might ask them to explain, why did you put your dot here? And so because this is done in a Google Doc, you can come in and edit anything you want. So down here where it says use the space to take notes, you could ask them a question, or you could do it in a comment. So I need to select something to comment on. So I could add a comment to this picture and ask them to explain their thinking here. Why did you put your dot here? So this makes it so that this lesson is now extended outside of our actual Pear Deck slides. There is a little bit of reflection involved now. This is also a great way if you are using this as an assessment or you're grading it in some way and you need students to turn in some corrections to get their grade to above a 70, this is a great way to allow them that opportunity. And so what you would do is you would edit this document and then you would share this back with them, either with the share button or on Google Classroom. You could push it back to them there. And then as a reminder, back on our Pear Deck tab here, when I clicked on that link, I also had the option here to share it to Google Classroom. And I don't know how it's going to work out here because you guys aren't logged in. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do an announcement just because it's the easiest on my end. All right, so let's go and look at that. So I posted that as an announcement to this class. And so my students now get this link. And it will bring them to the Google folder. And then they'll come in and see and find their own at this point. So that's another option. Granted, it's not assigning individually to the students. So each student could see one another's work. But it's another quick and easy option if you want them to do that. All right. So I think we've looked at everything in our agenda. Just real quick on our Pear Deck website. So I'm going to go home. So on our website, you have the option to kind of explore some of their blog posts. So if you're looking to learn more, they have a lot of resources out there about their different features and things. And then they also, I don't know if it's under help. No, it's not. Somewhere they have access to the orchard, but I don't know how to get there from here. I know how to get there before I log in. I'm going to Google it. Or actually, I'll just go to peardeck.com. Let's see what happens here. There we go. And then when you get to this login page, also notice that you have a whole set of resources here. In those resources, you have some different videos, you have access to the blog, and then they have something called the orchard. And in their orchard, there's supposed to be different templates and ready-made lessons. I haven't had much luck in finding ready-made lessons here. Anytime I search something that I think would have lessons, I get nothing. So you're welcome to try it, but I haven't had much luck with that. Yeah, see, nothing. But there's supposed to be different resources there in what's called the Orchard. Again, this is found on that login page, and you can see some of the different options here. All right. So with that said, it is 3:55. That's a great time for me to stop and ask for questions. And in the meantime, I am putting the link in our chat for attendance. So that link is there. Go ahead and complete that, and then you can stay and ask me questions, or if you have no further questions and feel ready to move on, then you are welcome to go about the rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you later on this week. No webinars scheduled tomorrow on my personal end. However, I am hosting the EdTech webinar at noon tomorrow about HyperDocs, which I'm pretty excited about. So if you'd like to catch a webinar with me, you'll have to find me at noon. So I had a question about the 90-day free trial. That is a COVID offer. So because of our current situation, that's why we have those 90 days. So I don't know if it would help to wait. I don't know if that's gonna, like, they're gonna take that away. So kind of something to weigh. Some people were thinking, I bet, at least this would be me. I would think to myself, I'm gonna wait till August to sign up so that I get 90 days within the school year. But it's very possible that that offer is no longer available by then.